Thank God for the Metaverse. You know, the one thing that could make the Metaverse even better? Getting Davos involved and getting Davos to get your children pushed into that Metaverse to learn about climate change. Hey, you awakening soul. Thank you for joining us. And thank you for joining the 5.6 million awakening wonders that watch this channel regularly. If you don't subscribe yet, subscribe right now. 40% of you have yet to subscribe, and it really helps us when you subscribe to the channel. Also, if you're interested in personal awakening and spiritual development, have a look at my awakening side channel. I'll throw to a video for that at the end of this one. And I've got a mailing list community that I'll also show you a link to, so that you can receive regular weekly bulletins from me where I'll tell you all the stuff I'm up to. Because, you know, I talk about this kind of stuff all the time. All right, now let's see what's going on at Davos, shall we? Did you go to Davos this year? What? You weren't invited? Oh, it was good. We had a good time. To be at Davos at all is a joy, but to be at Davos and be young and in love. Me and Klaus, we tired the moon with our talk of everything and nothing. Oh, Russell, I don't like to cry. Now, let's see what they're doing now. This story is, of course, about the WF's intentions to use the Metaverse to educate I've got children too, children about climate change. Disconnecting children from the physical world and plugging them into a virtual one is the way to go when it comes to the future of education, according to the World Economic Forum. Any of you that have got kids, particularly those of you that have like teenage boys, I would suggest, know that probably your number one problem is getting them little bastards off of the PlayStation or wherever it is they're into. Don't push them deeper into it. This is one of the opinions to have come out of this year's gathering in Davos. It's just a gathering. We're just gathering together to come up with ideas to bypass democracy and control your consciousness. With a post on WEF's website arguing that this direction is necessary, among other things, to combat climate change. One thing I dislike about this globalist movement is the capitulation to the myth of progress. I understand that there has been progress in technology and medicine and all sorts of fields of ideology and philosophy, but the notion that what we have to do is submit to technology and AI and give up manufacturing jobs and our connection to the land and the connection to one another. I've had conversations with people that are affiliated with the WEF, and they said, like, you know, oh, AI, it's inevitable. All these jobs will be gone soon. You best learn how to code. You best learn how to do this. And I said, you don't have to do that. You can actually do what you want if you have enough people resisting the march of globalism. Other reasons would be better quality, accessibility and affordability of education. Again, what's always presented as expedience and convenience to us often is an advantage to already powerful interests. I don't know specifically yet why I don't want my kid plugged into a metaverse, but I do know that I don't want that. I already worry that my kid's looking at a bloody phone too much or crunching on some dumb sugary food or not spending enough time outside. I've got enough guilt that I'm not being a good enough parent without thinking that the solution is to hand their precious young minds over to Klaus Schwab so he can slobber all over them in a metaverse. It was only cyber slobber. Also, the quality, accessibility and affordability of education were not that long ago regarded as a right. It was regarded as a problem if you didn't have those things. Now, what we're being sold is, oh, you know that thing that you can't afford education and it's shit? Well, guess what? Just plug your kid's head into the metaverse controlled by Zuckerberg and Davos and they'll be better at maths and they'll know how to not put plastic in a sea, and that'd be brilliant. Children now overly reliant on items like textbooks, notebooks and pencils. Oh, no, I'm so reliant. Oh, I don't know what to do. Oh, and my pencils, my precious pencils, not my 2B. That was my most favourite one. Look at how things are framed. Overly reliant on textbooks, accessibility of education. These things are presented as the natural order of things in the same way that progress is presented as the natural order of things. Get in line with progress, man. What are you, a Luddite? Some sort of square? Get your head into the metaverse. There's all sorts of cool cats in there. Klaus Schwab's in there. I mustn't pry. Mark Zuckerberg's in there. Hello, welcome to the metaverse. Get in there, man. Stop being so dependent on your pencil sharpener, you little square. What you doing? Typing out boobless on a calculator, you idiot. That's so yesteryear, man. Get into the metaverse. Learning tools should in the future become immersed in virtual reality, in augmented reality and mixed reality environments. Oh my God, what a nightmare. The main advantages of these things is probably it'll be a right laugh to go into virtual reality. I've had a go on some of them things and it made me think that all reality is probably some sort of simulation. That's my reaction. And obviously, the next round thought is, oh my God, what happens when you can get porn like this? And that's why I thought, don't go anywhere near this stuff. I didn't think, Let's put my kids in here and have them educated. That's the last thing. They're such sly bastards the way they try and drive us into a metaverse. Look at this. The pandemic is cited as a good example of how digital tools could be used for online education. That was a disaster. Did you try and get your kids to do some online education? It was a nightmare. Also, that was good, wasn't it? That online education, sat there with a laptop listening to Claptrap, trying to give us all these reasons why we've got to be herded into a metaverse. Well, firstly, climate change. You've got to do more about climate change or you're going to ruin the planet. Okay, and got anything better than that? Because I think that's probably mostly to do with industry, if you're honest, isn't it? All right. Pencils. You're a bit addicted to pencils. No, I'm not. I can give pencils up any time. No one's addicted to pens and pencils. All right. Admittedly, we made up the pens and pencils thing. But what about a pandemic? How good online learning was? That was a fucking nightmare, you morons. The pandemic is cited as a good example of how digital tools can be used for online education, but according to the author, they're not enough because students were merely being transferred knowledge instead of having practical and in-person experience. I don't like the subtle implication that we're going to live in some kind of permanent pandemic. You probably will be another pandemic one day. Mr. Gates says it's almost inevitable. Wouldn't it be better if we just put you into the metaverse now, dear? So if it was already prepared for it, then you wouldn't hardly notice what you couldn't go out of your house. You wouldn't need to wear a mask in the metaverse. You could touch people in the metaverse. I mean, they wouldn't be real people, of course. You'd be happier in the metaverse. These advancements, infiltration of education systems, have become an increasing imperative. VR and metaverse combined will be where students and teachers will be immersed in communication and sharing, overcoming space and time limitations. They're like used car salesmen for this metaverse, aren't they? Well, listen, we've got to do something about climate change now. That's the industry's fault. Well, come on, what about your addiction to pencils? I'm not really that addicted to pencils, to be honest. I'll take them or leave them. I'm not bothered about. Okay, then, pandemic? There could be another pandemic. Look, I'm really not bothered. Surely, though, you've always wanted to overcome space and time. I'm not Doctor Strange. I accept the conditions of our universe. There's space and there's time, which apparently are infinite. I am finite. I'm going to deal with it. Would it be better if we had fairer systems, a bit of democracy, a bit of justice? How about using your technological advances for that? On the metaverse, we do offer pencils would have a smelly eraser at the end of it. Klaus, where have you put this? VR and metaverse combined will be where students and teachers will be immersed in communication and sharing, overcoming space and time limitations, like Doctor Who. The article urges leaders, educators and regulators to promote this agenda proactively and mentions that this push is already beginning to happen in countries like the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia, where I understand workers have great rights. The World Economic Forum is on track to be at the centre of defining what the future metaverse will look like by inserting itself in the metaverse's creation early on. How typical of the WEF to be pushing the tip into a metaverse before anyone's even asked them to get involved. WEF's multi-stakeholder initiative wants to assume a leadership role in defining and building the metaverse. Facebook President of Global Affairs and former British Deputy Prime Minister Nick Clegg has announced. Like, if you're a British person like I am, you'll remember that Nick Clegg was for a while the leader of the Liberal Democrat Party, which is the third party in British politics. We have a third one. It don't do anything. Don't worry about it. We've got two, like you, a red one and a blue one. Anyway, Nick Clegg was in charge of one of those for a while, and they had the first chance to do a deal with the worst one. He did do that deal. And then the first chance he got to take a job at Facebook, he took that job. Building the metaverse requires work across industry to inform best practices and governance principles and ensure that these technologies are built responsibly. At WF's new multi-stake shareholder initiative announced today will play a leadership role in that work. Again, you see how a former politician's gone into a job with a major corporation and speaks as if there's an inevitability to this Weltanschauung, to this worldview. This is something that's inevitably going to happen, and our best bet is to sort of regulate it and ensure it happens in the right way. Well, guess what? You're a human being, and you can choose whether or not to participate in that system and other systems as well. We can decide if we want to stop complying, to become disobedient en masse, to not participate in systems that we disagree with. Reality isn't a foregone conclusion. We participate in its construction through our consent, through our discourse with it, and through our willingness to submit to it. Like Klaus Schwab's got politicians queuing up to polish his metaverse for him, and he loves it. I think that our role as activated citizens is to say, we're not doing that. What do you think you're doing, mate? We ain't having our kids educated up your metaverse. We'll educate them at home. We'll do what we like. The initiative, laid out in a post on the Davos events website, seeks to provide guidance on creating an ethical, inclusive, economically viable metaverse. What a lot of bollocks, man. And represent the link between businesses, regulators, civil society and academia from both the private and public sectors. The defining and building the metaverse wants to focus on producing governance principles for it and also something defined as societal value creation. Social credit score? It will also outline how value chains may be disrupted, industries may be transformed, new assets could be created, and rights protected. So essentially, the tools of the metaverse will be used to instantiate new systems of power and enforce existing systems of power. The relationships between academia and industry and all that, that's already pretty well ensconced. This isn't offering anything new and beneficial. This is an advance of an already existing paradigm, an already existing system of power. Things good about the metaverse is a real break from the norm for everyone, because who's going to be in charge of it is like billionaires from Davos and Mark Zuckerberg. So it's a real brave new world. I didn't mean literally brave new world. Sorry, you've already said that now. The WEF appears to want to get involved in the creation and, through governance and regulation, ultimately control of the metaverse in the early stages of its development. The post cites statements from stakeholders such as Clegg on behalf of Meta and top execs from Microsoft, HTC, Sony Interactive, as well as Walmart, CJ Corporation, the Lego Group, Animoca Brands, and others. Who else would it be other than pre-existing power structures? It's not going to be like, I've just got some bloke, Dennis, he's a painter and decorator from Wolverhampton, and Paula from Detroit, she's going to get stuck in. It's going to be these pre-existing systems. It's not going to offer anything new. It's going to be another distraction at best, and at worst, a new form of tyranny, controlling your behaviour, manipulating your attention and consciousness, binding up your data, selling, you know how it all works. What the initiative promises is to give the industry a toolkit for building the metaverse that is ethical and responsible in nature. Ethics and responsibility are subjective terms that can only really be established and deemed to be universal if there's been a long discourse and a kind of democratic process in establishing what that meaning is. You can't just go to the WEF and say, what's responsible, please, and what's ethical? I'll let you know. A couple of months ago, we did a story about how a subsidiary of Facebook have created a toolkit for education facilities and schools. Like, we'll help you in mental health and all that stuff. Because one of the areas where there's rules and regulations that prevent data capture is in minors and children. And we posited that potentially this toolkit could be a way for Facebook and their affiliate groups to inveigle their way into data capture of minors, knowing that there's another generation of people coming up whose data you ain't yet got. Do you think that when these kids go into the old metaverse to get educated and get over their terrible pencil and eraser addiction that's driving them all crazy, that their data might get captured? Do you think that your government in whatever country you're in will have the stones, the balls to say, hey, all right, well, thanks for your metaverse and that. Don't be nicking the kids' data while they're in there. Do you think that the metaverse could be used to start capturing children's data early? Or do you think I'm being terribly cynical? According to Nick Clegg, the future metaverse will represent a force for inclusion and equity. They're always saying that, aren't they? Inclusion and equity. They're always saying we're after inclusion and equity. All right, coming in. How are you going to get the inclusion and equity? Just by telling you all what to do all the time and nicking all your data. That's the only way of getting it, really. If you think that what drives these kind of interests is anything other than financial power and power more broadly and the ability to manipulate and control reality, and I don't mean in some sort of crazy occult way, I mean the ability to control our lives because of the measure of power that they have and the increased power they have, because there's no regulatory oppositional force to prevent it taking place, because all these apparently independent bodies like the WEF and the WHO are funded by people that got their money from the kind of corporations that ultimately require the regulations that end up providing these tools. I mean, wait, what if these people somehow do things that are advantageous to their shareholders? You just let me know what you think, because I think that potentially that all of these things, a metaverse could be a fantastic thing, the same way a phone or any tool could be a fantastic thing in the right hands. But there are no right hands, really. I mean, there's literally one. But what I mean to say is you can't grant that much power to any centralised force and imagine that it will be used responsibly, because we've been alive too long, haven't we, to think that? Oh, life. I know about life, baby. Let me know what you know in the comments below. This is about what you think more than what I think, even though the video is mostly me talking, I'll acknowledge. Give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to this channel right now, please. If you enjoyed this video, have a look at that one that I referenced. Have a look at one from the Awakening channel if you feel like it, and sign up to my mailing list here so I can communicate with you and tell you about the live Zoom calls we do. Man, they're hilarious. You'll love them. I hope to see you there. Stay free.